think what I want to start with in the whole talk is really talk about suffering. What is it to suffer? Why is it we're all suffering? What is its purpose? And many people have talked about suffering through the ages, what it is. Nobody knows why we do it. One thing I want to put forward maybe as an idea is maybe what? Sounds good. It transforms. Suffering like a gateway to transform you into something else. I want to use the concept of the idea of a butterfly. I think you had a butterfly on your. I saw your butterfly. In your bag? Yeah. Yeah, it's a butterfly in your bag. It's amazing. I've come across a butterfly so often just recently. I want to start my talk with a butterfly and end the talk with the concept of a butterfly.
Okay.
It's best to ask permission.
Cormac Cullinan he's a speaker. He's involved in the Wild Law campaign, which is about bringing rights to Mother Nature, to Mother Earth, and he's been instrumental in Bolivia in bringing rights to Mother Nature in the Constitution. And I saw his talk on YouTube at Cochabamba in 2010, and he started his talk with the metaphor of the butterfly, and he said society is like the caterpillar. The caterpillar eats and it eats and it eats and it eats so much that if it ate anymore it would just die. Just die if it ate, and something in its genes causes the butterfly in its DNA to change, to enter into the pupa stage, and then it transforms into this butterfly. And he's saying the same thing about nature and our society, that we have eaten and eaten the resources of the world, and if we eat any more, then the world will die. And he's hoping that there must be that change in the DNA that's going to happen. We'll transform, change. I went away and I met another guy called Christian Sivertsen, and he set up a project called the Awake Project, and I was at the Wilderness Festival, and he has gone through personal suffering and had this spiritual transformation himself, and he set up this artistic project called the Awake Project about embracing his newfound freedom. And I went up to him and I mentioned this butterfly metaphor to him, and he smiled and he brought out his own card, and on his card there was a butterfly, and he said, do you know what my story of the butterfly is? And I said, tell me. And he said, there's a man walking in the woods, and he sees a pupae, and out of the pupae it's just about to emerge this butterfly, and it's struggling to emerge, and it's just fighting to come out. And he sees the struggle and he thinks, oh, I'll help the butterfly. So he cuts open the pupae to help the butterfly emerge. The butterfly comes out and it stands and it spreads its wings, but it falls to the ground and just dies. And his metaphor is that the butterfly needed the struggle. It needed to struggle to give it the strength to its wings so it could launch itself and fly and transform. By trying to help the butterfly, he actually killed it. It didn't go through its pain, it didn't go through its suffering to emerge on the other side as a beautiful creature it is. I recently came across a lady called Magda Gerber, who's this, she's set up an institution called Resources for Infant Educators. And I was forwarded a blog by Janet Lansbury, who's a famous actress, and she wrote a blog called Good Grief. And when I read that blog, it really changed my perspective about children and about parenting. It talks about parents distracting us when we are children from our own griefs as a child. So when you're crying as a child, parents go, oh look, it's okay, here's a toy, play with that, put a dummy in it, look, it's fine. And so you're distracted from your grief all the time, and you're never in your grief with the parent to experience it together.
Isn't that a natural reaction to protect?
Maybe it is a natural reaction, but is it the right action? Because now I personally have adopted that method myself when I'm older. Whenever I suffer, I want to distract myself. I'll go, I need to go drink, or I need to go some drugs or whatever, or consumerism, buy stuff. I'm always distracting myself because I don't want to be in my pain, because that's what I've learned. I've been told, go and distract yourself because that's what you're meant to do.
Is that necessarily wrong?
To distract yourself. you don't learn what it is about your pain.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't actually necessarily agree with what you've said, actually, because it depends what you mean by distracting yourself, because also going for what, focusing, concentrating your energy on what is good and positive and loving is, that is focusing your energy or your attention in one place, in one space, in one mental space, and actually, and then the negativity, I would argue that the darkness and the negativity will just naturally destroy itself, will naturally melt away. So I would argue that.
Becoming more aligned.
Sorry?
Becoming more aligned with yourself, with your true purpose.
Well, just being aligned, just self-alignment to the nice things, to the beautiful things, to the things that make everybody feel good. You know, things about the caring of other people and the caring of other creatures and the caring of the world. You know?
Yeah.
You're not talking about being consumed by it.
Well, not consumed, I'm talking about transformation, change, transforming, as in through my own pain and going through various things, struggling, trying to distract myself every day. Eventually I gave up trying to distract myself and I said, I gave up work, I couldn't face work, and I said, what is this? I focused on the pain. And it's kind of entered into a pupa stage then, of the butterfly, of like, I've made a little nester on myself to just really just be with myself for a while.
One thing though about distracting yourself away from the pain, I think sometimes people think that if I don't distract myself away from the pain, I will dwell on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily to dwell on the pain, but you can allow it to pass through you. And then it takes care of itself. And then you have space for the good feelings to come in. But if you always distract yourself, you're just pushing the pain in front of you. And it'll grow, and it'll grow, and it'll grow. You have to...
And everyone has different edges. Everyone has that different edge of where they can take so much, and sometimes I'll take that much. I know I keep struggling, I'll take that much. And each note is a different note. Like some people say, I can't take any more than that. They play the light notes. Some people play a bit more. They play the deeper notes. Some people play the heavier notes, more pain, and then they play the really deep notes. And that's what I was trying to think about is the caterpillar transforms itself to a butterfly. The person who cut it open wasn't really truly aware of its needs. He thought, I'm going to help it. I'm going to cut it open and let it fly, and he killed it. If he was truly aware of its needs, he would have allowed it to struggle through to become the butterfly. And to be truly aware of somebody else's needs, that's what I think maybe is one aspect of love. To be truly aware of each person's individual's needs, what they really, in their heart, are really seeking. To see that, to be aware of it, and to say, that is what we need. So what did I start becoming aware of through my own pupa stage? Well, I thought to be aware of what is happening now, I had to be aware of what previous world pictures were, because our ideas of reality aren't necessarily reality itself, they're just ideas that we've grown with through time. I want to start with the Greeks and Romans and their pagan world. They saw no separation in a way between humanity and animals. Ovid, in his poetry, Metamorphoses, talks about Narcissus turning into a flower. We are nature, we can transform, but we are the whims of gods. And in those poetry, there's a sense of fear that we, no understanding of our place in nature, we transform, we become one thing. Who are we? Who are humans? And then the major shift I think happened was when Constantine in AD 300, the emperor of the Roman world, the pagan world, had his own spiritual conversion to Christianity, his own personal spiritual conversion. But because he was the emperor, he converted the whole Roman Western world, a social conversion. And in that change, that spiritual change, in that transformation of viewpoint, of reality, humans were seen as above nature, they had a special position in nature. An anthropocentric viewpoint came around, where humans were at the center of the world. Nature was a resource to be used, and Earth had a special place at the center of the known universe. And it was interesting, after Constantine came another emperor, Julian, and I went to see a play at the National Theatre called Emperor and Galilean by Ibsen, and it was about Julian, because Julian, the emperor, I hadn't known this, wanted to reconvert the world to a pagan world. He believed in the pagan, and his letter to his tutor said this: "From my childhood, a deep yearning for the rays of the sun god was infused in me, and ever since I was a child, my mind was so completely fascinated by the light that I abandoned everything and gave myself up to the beauties of the heavens." And so he wanted the whole world to be pagan again. He wanted to worship the sun god and all the gods of the world. He was an obsessive, self-righteous revolutionary. He just didn't want to stay still. He went into battle with the Persians after 20 months and died. He was killed. And just imagine if he'd stayed where he was, patiently tried to reconvert the world back into a pagan world, and to go back to show the world of the gods, the sun god, the wind, the god of the wind. We may be living in a radically different world now, but he didn't. And so he entered into this Christian phase. And the next sort of revolution or transformation in viewpoint I want to talk about is Nicolaus Copernicus in 1543. Around then he wrote a book on the revolution of the heavenly spheres. And he had an idea, just a concept, just a thought, that the motions of the heavens can be explained without the Earth at the centre. The Earth has no special position, and neither do humans. It's just a concept. He didn't really have an idea of how that could be explained. Galileo, who was the father of observational astronomy, he took that idea forward, and Newton completed the whole circle, the whole Copernican paradigm shift, by showing the laws of gravity and predict what is real and what isn't real. And there was a professor of law and philosophy in the US called David Lubin, who explained this Copernican paradigm shift in the world picture, the way we look at the world, in four very simple ideas. He said he gave us a sense of uprootedness in cosmology, he gave us a representation of the path of reason, a mistrust of common sense, i.e. intuition, as a guide to truth, and a world picture based on scientific laws rather than narratives. Scientific laws, i.e. verifiable predictions, verifiable by our outward observation of reality. Now, hot in his footsteps came Immanuel Kant and his critique of pure reason. And listening to the critique of pure reason, he was delighted at this new tool to discover truth, reason. And he said, and I quote his words, but his philosophy proceeds precisely on the lines of Copernicus' primary hypothesis. Now what does that mean? Victor Cousins, a French philosopher, said this as an explanation. Copernicus, seeing it was impossible to explain the motion of the heavenly spheres on the supposition that these bodies moved around the Earth, adapted the alternative of supposing all to move around the sun. So Kant, instead of supposing man to move around objects, supposed on the contrary that he himself was the centre, and that all moved around him. So we have the completion of the Copernican and Cartesian transformation of the world viewpoint. To summarise, the pagan, humanity, the whims of the gods, part of nature. Christianity, humanity special, we're separate and above nature. And in this post-Cartesian world, each human being is separate. Each is a world unto their own, split between mind and body. And there were benefits to this Copernican Cartesian transformation. It gave us an awareness of the power of the mind. An awareness, and it freed, once we were aware of it, wow, there it is, this mind. It freed mind from its hidden place. And if you want to use an analogy, it's like a horse and a carriage, a driver, aware of its connection to the horse through the reins. And he let loose the reins. He let loose the reins and the horse runs free and wild, its own energy, and freed mind did wonderful things. Mind made the Industrial Revolution, Western democracy, the rule of law, science and technology. Wonderful, wonderful things the mind did. Now, Niall Ferguson, a historian, he wrote a book just recently called Civilization, the West and the Rest. And these are his words about this change. He said, 500 years ago, something quite extraordinary happened. The impoverished, petty strife kingdoms embarked on 5 centuries of interrupted expansion. Meanwhile, the magnificent empires of the Orient stagnated and then succumbed to Western dominance. By 1900, The Westerners that have effectively subjugated the rest. Now, how did Niall Ferguson explain this? Well, he explained by these 6 killer apps. The West: competition, science, land ownership, medicine, consumerism, and the work ethic. These were the 6 killer apps, to heat up the modern IT terminology. Now, I think this Western human experience, this Western world picture, these 6 killer apps can be more refined and just be called all aspects of mind. They're all aspects of mind, because we measure our reality from the external reality through this Cartesian transformation in world viewpoint. We don't trust our common sense or intuition as guides to truth. We need the external reality, and these things are all about external reality. So mind, released from its hidden place, gave forth to these 6 killer apps. Now, what is the motivation for Niall's thesis about these 6 killer apps? His book is all centered on fear. Fear that if the West lost the monopoly of these 6 killer apps, the rest would dominate the rest of the world. I mean, he's unaware that he is acting himself from within the mind's perceptions, not reality. He is equating competition with reality, and he's already just said competition is just a killer application. It's not reality, it's an application. But he's adopting competition because he's fearful that the rest will overtake the rest of the world. And what would happen if we adopted a different application? What would happen if we adopted the application of collaboration instead? Not competition. Are there other guides to truth other than these westernized concepts that come from this Copernican Cartesian idea of reality? Well, look at our language. We say speaking from the heart. We say learning by heart. And our language remembers the importance of heart. Heart in French is cœur. Courage, the word courage comes from it, to mean heart. And we all have hearts. Each individual person has a heart. We don't all have clinical minds, but we all have hearts that speak. And what is the way of the heart? I think New Age philosophy and spiritualism has kept this way of the heart as an ember alive and kept connection with this pre-Cartesian method of experiencing reality. And if we apply historical archaeology to this New Age philosophy, try to go to its historical roots, how far can we go? And so far, the furthest I've gone in the history is to yoga, to yogic philosophy, the Vedas and the sutras of Patanjali. These arose around 5,500 years ago. And in the sutras of Patanjali, he says the aim of yoga, Sutra 1.1, Atha Yoga Nusanam. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but Bernard Buanshaw, who's a translator, translated as Atha means the here and now, Nusanam, an outline, teaching. A teaching of the here and now is yoga. Sutra 1.3, Tada Drusta Svarupa Vasnam. Tada means then, Drastu, of the inner being, the seeing entity, the witness. Svarupa, the true shape, true nature. Vastanam, establishment. The establishment of the true shape of the inner being, the witness. And he says more. So, yoga teaching is founded on living experience. Yoga is based on direct experience, not written knowledge. It unites mind, body and heart. And the higher level of consciousness is man's true nature, freed at that moment from its old conditioning, like a butterfly breaking out of its chrysalis. So yoga teaching is based on living experience. So I tried to learn through living experience. What is living experience? I was at a retreat not long ago, and I had these sticks. And I went to a person. I said to somebody, well, these long sticks. I said, what would you do with this stick? And this guy said, well, with this stick, it's like something I can fight with. It's a staff. I'm going to fight. I can fight off people. And I said, that's interesting. I got the stick and I gave it to this other person. I said, well, what would you do with the stick? She said, well, it's like a staff. She held it. That was interesting. It's like a completely different way of looking at nature. The staff, this piece of wood, nature. One man, he was like, I'm the centre of my world. And nature, I'm going to use it to fight off people, fend off everybody else. the other woman was like, I'm going to use it as a staff to lean on, support. I'm going to use nature as my support. I thought, isn't that such an interesting change? One is that we are the centre of our world, and we're going to fight off everybody. And one is, I'm going to lean on nature. I'm not the centre of my world. Nature is the centre, and I will take my support. And if I'm leaning on there, I don't need to lean on a man or a woman. A woman doesn't need to lean on a man, because we don't need to be in that relation. We need that relation maybe, but if they move away, normally we'd fall away. We're dependent on them. But with nature as support, the centre, we're supported already. And that is maybe the paradigm shift I want to bring across. Maybe the mind, this idea that the mind is the centre, maybe it's not the centre around which all else revolves. Maybe our mind is not the centre of our lives. I mean, that's just another idealism, or is it a better idealism that we can connect to in this age that we're in now?
Sorry, can I just give you an idea? Sorry, one thing.
Yeah.
I personally believe it's possible that everyone here is at the centre of their world, because if we're in infinite space, if we're part of infinite space, then everybody is at the centre of the world, because there's no boundaries. So nobody is in a primary position.
Yeah.
So we can all be at the centre. Everybody can be at the centre of their world.
Yeah, we dance together. We don't compete, we don't fight, we just dance. There's a dance where nobody's the centre. The world, the centre, the root through which we're all connected is the world. So maybe with that idea, we can realise that mind is a bit out of control. We can say to the horse, where we let loose the rein, we say, actually, whoa, hold back those reins and go, just hold on there. You've run out wild and crazily into the space, and that was great. You discovered all these amazing things, but I need to take back control. And we can create new sorts of structures based on a balance between mind and heart, body experiences of truth, these different experiences of truth. And I think that's happening right now. And I just want to give two examples where I think that's happening. On the internet and within companies. On the internet, Meetup. I don't know if any people are involved in Meetup. Scott Heiferman set that up 10 years ago. I hadn't realised this, but he set it up after 9/11. Meetup was born out of the 9/11 tragedy. He sent an email just on this 10th anniversary, and I'll read you a quote from it. He said, "Let me tell you the story of Meetup. I was living a couple of miles from the Twin Towers, and I was the kind of person who thought local community doesn't matter much. When the towers fell, I found myself talking more to neighbours in the days after 9/11 than ever before. A lot of people were thinking that maybe 9/11 could bring people together in a lasting way. So the idea for Meetup was born. Could we use the internet to get off the internet and grow local communities? Today, almost 10 years old and 10 million meetups later, it's working. Every day, thousands of meetups happen. Moms meetups, small business meetups, fitness meetups. And what happens next is still amazing to me. They grow businesses and bands together. They teach and motivate each other. They babysit each other's kids and find other ways to work together. They have fun and find solace together. They make friends and form powerful community. And on Facebook, I'm seeing this evolution happening right now. It started off as chit-chat gossip. I hated Facebook until recently. And I began seeing explorations on Facebook, explorations of who am I? Who am I? Avatars of self are being created on Facebook. People just like talking about meditation and you can like them and not like them. All these connections and learning to co-create spaces and connections on the internet, new spaces. And so there's this rebalancing happening on the internet and also in companies. Companies were originally social enterprises. They were established by a royal charter or acts of parliament with restricted powers, narrowly defined objectives, because parliament knew that these corporations had significant powers and they wanted to restrict and define what they were meant to do as vehicles. Now modern companies have evolved with this idea of separate legal personality, artificial persons. The rules of creation of companies have relaxed massively. The objectives have widened so they can do anything they want basically. And case law has established that the duty to shareholders is paramount. This duty to shareholders is paramount. Now, there was a film and a book recently called The Corporation, and if we created these artificial people as we have, what kind of person is a company it has? Now, it said these companies exhibit all the characteristics of a psychopath. I say the motivation for their existence is profit for shareholders. So of course they're going to be psychopaths. They have no heart. They're going to be psychopaths because they have no heart. Think of the Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man, no heart. So how do we give corporations a heart? How do we give them their heart, like the Tin Man? Well, I want to use an example. I mean, of electricity suppliers. EDF as a company has a green tariff, but it is established on the heartless principle of profit for shareholders. Still, it's the old style company. Whereas new companies like the Good Energy Company or Ecotricity, they follow a heartfelt principle. Good Energy says it will be 100% renewable source. And when I asked it, if you had more customers than your energy you could supply, what would you do? They said we would refuse those customers because we don't have the resources. That's our principle to exist. And they have a heart. And that's their motivation to exist. And it's so different. So so having said this, the question was asked, what do we do now? What do we do? Well, this paradigm shift, this idea, I think has to be catalyzed, that we're not the center of our lives. I am not the center. I is not the center. The world is the center, and the root of our beings and our connections are through that. People power. People power, I think. The corporations had this interesting quote about companies. It said, the genius of the corporation as a business form and the reason for its remarkable rise over the last 3 centuries was, and is, its capacity to combine the capital and thus the economic power of unlimited numbers of people in a corporation. And I say, let's establish the same idea with people. Combine people together as it's happening with meetups, with Facebook. Let's launch ourselves together. And I wanted to launch, I gave out a sheet of paper earlier on with my project which I wanted to launch in this space called the Wake Up Project. And it's my way, everyone will have a different way to help catalyse a paradigm shift in consciousness and viewpoint of the world. And my project that I wanted to co-create with people was, I had a survey on my sheet on SurveyMonkey, it's on there, the link, with questions that I wanted to ask people about, do they think a transformation is happening? Have these events led you to have a different view? Are you inquiring? What's your strength of your inquiry? Don't you believe a socio-spiritual transformation is happening? What are your reasons for so? Just an inquiry that I want to make about people's views, so I can collate those all together to come forward with a project. And the project that I wanted to co-create, as I currently envisage, it may change in the flow from the responses I get, is I wanted to be an umbrella organisation for people whose hearts sing with a desire to wake people up to a corrected appreciation of their connection to nature and Mother Earth. We call the Wake Up Project. It will help co-create their projects and provide consultancy services, connectivity services through that. So consult and co-create.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
The beginning of the book of Jonah, you know, the book of Jonah begins with, God's saying to Jonah, wake up, wake up Jonah. It's a very fascinating parable, highly sophisticated, full of layers and layers and layers of meaning.
What is the parable of Jonah? He gets eaten by a whale. Does he get eaten by a whale?
Yeah, I mean that's the bit that everybody knows.
What's the other bit?
But I mean, really, to be honest with you, if I had the text in front of, if we had the text, it's highly sophisticated. It's a very, very intricate text, but there's layers within layers, and it's all about waking up.
Let me give you a parable of Jesus eating 2,000 loaves. What is your interpretation of that parable? Do you think it's a real miracle that happened? I had some intuitive thought about what that meant, the parable. Because when you talk about love, Jesus was talking about a loaf of bread. He said, and people have interpreted it as like he must have fed 2,000 people. A miracle happened with 1 loaf of bread. But what about the concept of abundance? Give as if you have plenty. Act from your heart as if the whole world has plenty to give. For all time, there will always be so much to give. And you had a loaf of bread to give. What would you do? Would you give not 99% of it away? Because you know there's so much more to give. Would not that loaf of bread then be shared among 2,000 people? Because you have given your love.
Well, the idea
it's not the bread that you have given, it is the love that you have given. An abundance of love.
I agree with you. The idea of the Eucharist is that everybody, excluding nobody, is invited to the meal. Nobody is excluded from the meal.